In this week, I'll be predicting Seahawks versus Vikings. Obviously, last week wrong. Just like I said, obviously the defensive coordinator of the Titans adjusted to the tape from our games against the Colts, but partially the play calling wasn't as good either. It's kind of hard to know how good teams are this early in the season. Example, the Saints demolished the Packers, and people were saying maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't trying, what's going on, are the Saints Super Bowl contenders? And then the very next week, the Packers beat the Lions as much as people would have expected, and the Saints lost to the Panthers. This early in the season, it's hard to tell how good teams are. This game against the Vikings, I will say this, on paper, I don't like the matchup because the Vikings offense is as talented, particularly at skilled player positions, as what the Titans have, and the Seahawks have not shown the ability to, the Seahawks defense has not shown the ability to slow that down. On the other side of the ball, I don't know what to make quite yet of the Vikings defense. The Vikings defense doesn't seem to be that great, but neither does ours. So, and certainly this game will be played in Minnesota, so they have that advantage too. There is literally only one reason that the spread the last time I checked is Seahawks win by 2 points. There is literally only one reason, and one reason only, why I would take the Seahawks to cover that spread, which is this. The last 7 times the Seahawks have played the Vikings, the Seahawks have won all 7 of those games. So you're betting against the vast majority of history. Obviously, the Vikings have to beat the Seahawks sometime, but under the current regime, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, the Vikings have lost pretty much consistently. That is the only reason why I'm taking the Seahawks to cover the spread. But certainly, the Vikings are fighting for dear life. They've just lost 2 games in a row, 2 close games. Out of the teams that have lost both their games so far, the Vikings are arguably the best. The Colts are not bad either, and I think the Giants are kind of underrated. But a team that has just lost 2 close games is fighting for their dear life if they think they should make the playoffs. So they have a lot to play for. And it's by no means a guarantee the Seahawks will win. On paper, I don't think the Vikings are any worse than the Titans are, and they have home field advantage. To reiterate, the Seahawks have never, not never, they've beaten the Vikings the last 7 times they've played. That's the history you're betting against. And the spread is only 2 points. That's small. If the spread was anything bigger than a small margin, I would take the Vikings. But for that reason only, I will bet on the Seahawks, simply because they've beaten the Vikings 7 times in a row. The other thing, actually, one more thing is this. The penalties against the against the Seahawks in the Titans game were so bad that they couldn't be any worse. When things are so bad they couldn't be any worse, they can only get better. And obviously, they're going to make an emphasis of that in practice too. The penalties cannot possibly hurt the Seahawks as much against the Vikings as it did against the Titans, because they're going to focus that on in practice. And it couldn't get any worse, it can only get better. Although penalties have been bad to the Vikings too. Other than that, on paper, the Vikings don't seem to be worse than the Titans, and we lost to the Titans in Seattle. We're playing them in Minnesota. We've beaten the Seahawks. We've beaten the Vikings the last 7 times we've played them. And we only have to win by 2 points. That's a small spread. I'll take the Seahawks to cover.